everybody? Welcome to the last and also the final episode of Take the Black Live for the year 2023. I am, as I have been all year, Dan Selcke, editor of winnerscoming.net, here with Daniel Roman, also editor of winnerscoming.net. And wow, what a year it's been. What a day it is. How enthusiastically tired we all are. Daniel, how are you
Yes,
feeling the final Take the Black Live show of 2023?
I'm feeling good. I'm getting my Zen on. Apparently, so audio listeners can't see this, but I've got a light like directly over my head, so it looks like I've got a very shiny top of head. But nah, I'm good. I'm good. I'm a little sick, but I'm here. I'm excited to talk about the shows that all the shows we've known and loved, and maybe loved a little less and loved a little more throughout the year. How are you, Dan? And how are
I'm
all of you
well.
out there? Sound off in the chat if you're here.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. Hey, Martha. Hey, Robert. Good to see everybody. Yeah. Anyone who's there, feel free to weigh in because we have a good show for you today. Today is our annual, I'm going to go ahead and say famous, um, end of year rankings of the 15 biggest sci-fi fantasy genre shows of the year. The last 2 years, we've gotten to the end of the year, and we've decided to, rather than report on the news for y'all, which we could talk about too, I mean,
We'll
we
get
know it.
there. Yeah.
Um, we're going to go through a list of 15 big TV shows from this year, and we're going to tell you with authority vested in us by us which were the best and rank them all the way from the top, tippity top best show, all the way down to 15, which is not so good. Although, maybe we'll decide that all 15 of these shows were great. We did leave some
Maybe we
off that
will.
were just not worth it. Some made narrowly got on, but weren't. So let's go over the list and let's see what we're working with here
Yeah.
before we
Well,
get to the rankings, before we kind of gift our opinions onto the world.
yeah, that sounds good. I don't know if you want to say this before we talk about the list or after, but there are a couple that we're leaving off too that we just didn't watch because if there's one thing
That's true.
2023 has taught us, it is that even when watching television is your full-time job, there are too many shows to physically watch all of them.
Oh yeah.
So there are a few big shows that I am pretty certain would be on this list had either of us watched them. But since we didn't, we're not going to pretend. That would be dishonest.
But there are also
Um,
shows that we just didn't want to put on, like Secret Invasion didn't get on this list
oh God,
because
no.
it would be out of 15, like 25th. What's the point? So
Yes,
we tried to put on ones that, although that would have been fun to have it on there, so we could just have something easy in the 15 slot. But
we've
we
still got an
rise
easy
above
one.
that.
We've still got an easy 15 in my opinion. But yeah, I did think about Secret Invasion and whether we should put it on here, but it felt like it would be kicking something while it's down and like let's be real, Secret Invasion just wasn't that good. Like it's not one of the
Yeah.
fifth. It's definitely not one of the 15 best. Let just briefly before we get into it, I'll mention there are three other ones that are not on this
Okay.
list.
What are they?
One is Outlander. So sorry to the Outlander stands. That is strictly because neither of us have watched season 7 of Outlander.
Sorry about
Um,
it.
yeah, I'm sure that one would have been in the rankings somewhere had we watched it. But we're just not caught up. Yes, Robert, this is only shows, no films. Sorry, Godzilla -1. I'm sure you're great, but you're not a television show. So actually, that's another one. Monarch Legacy of Monsters is not on the list because we haven't watched it.
Also, still going on.
It is still going on. Sorry to Camila, who really, really loves that show, but we haven't watched it. Um, the others, so the Star Treks, there were a lot of Star Trek shows this year,
Man, there were.
and I'm sure that at least one or two of them were good enough that they would have ranked, but neither Dan nor I got into the Trek because again, so many shows that even as your full-time job, you cannot watch them all. And the last one, Invincible. And this was your call, Dan. Why is Invincible not on the list?
Because half the season has aired this year and the other half is going to air next year. We don't know the release date for that one, by the way. and it
Yeah.
just felt weird to judge half a show and call it the entire thing.
Okay.
Which is too
We can go
bad.
with that logic for
I
Outlander too. Ha! That's why it's not on the
Oh, we
list.
can, can't we? Okay,
We'll
cool.
rank
These
that
past
one
season
next year.
shows. Yes, we will. Oh God, that's a promise now. We will rank it next year.
We will. I'll get
So what
caught up.
shows are on the list, Daniel?
All right. So let's just run through them from the top. And so this is just down the bullet point list. So we have The Last of Us.
Oh, it's about zombies.
We have The Wheel of Time season 2.
Season 2, yeah, it came
Season
back.
2.
It conquered. It was better. It was fun. The Wheel of Time, I think, could be a contender this year. But what
Yeah.
do you think? Let us know, and then we'll decide.
We have The Witcher season 3, which
Ooh, more controversial.
which is a controversial one. I'm going to go on a limb here and say I think this is one of the most underappreciated fantasy shows of the year because the controversy was so hot. I thought The Witcher season 3 was great. Beyond that, we've got Silo, the first season of Silo on Apple TV Plus.
One of the less buzzy shows we have on here, but it's good to uh, speak out on behalf of underseen programs and use our platform to get poor Becca Ferguson some views.
Wow, the shade at Silo. Okay, so yeah, that's fair. It is one of the lesser buzzy shows. It's also like the most viewed, I think, Apple original of all time. So it is a hit for Apple, Dan, for whatever that counts for. Beyond that, we've got One Piece, one of the very, very buzzy shows. Yeah, got to talk about One Piece.
We do.
The Walking Dead, we're kind of lumping Daryl Dixon and Dead City together here because neither deserves it on its own. But if we're going to talk about The Walking Dead, I think we can talk about those two as a unit. And we're just going to pretend Fear the Walking Dead didn't happen because I haven't talked to a single person who was happy about it. So
Yeah,
let me know in the chat if you loved Fear the Walking Dead this year, and we should love it too. Please let us know. Beyond that, For All Mankind season 4. This is a show I know very little about, but Dan, you really like this one.
I dug into this one this year. I'd always heard good things about it. Now I'm knee deep into it, and it is a very solid program that also doesn't get a lot of press, so it's fourth ranking. Another Apple TV Plus joint.
There you
What
go.
does the highest seen show on Apple TV Plus even mean? Silo got more views than Ted Lasso. Really?
I'd have to double check that. Maybe it was genre shows, but I thought it was their like most viewed original out of the gate. So maybe it's like in its first month of airing or something like that. Yeah, I mean Silo is based on a very popular book series, so I'm not surprised that it did as well as it has done for Apple.
Okay.
So after For All Mankind, we have Gen V, The Boys college spinoff.
Sure.
Lots of raunch, only very few classes. So a very, very true to a college experience. And then Doctor Who, which is kind of a weird one this year because it was specials. It wasn't really a full season, but they were notable specials. So we're going to talk about it. After that, Black Mirror season 6. This is an interesting. I'm excited to talk about this one. I feel like Black Mirror is relevant both for the quality of the thing, but also for kind of the way it lined up with current events was notable, in my opinion.
Gotcha.
That I think Black Mirror warrants some extra honoring for that. After that, Ahsoka, the new Star Wars show.
Yeah.
And then more Star Wars, The Mandalorian, Yippee-ki-yay Part 2. And then after that, we're getting down. We're almost through the list. Then we can duke it out. So Good Omens, season 2. The Good Omens stands ate well this year. Crowley and Aziraphale were back. They had a great season. They're getting season 3. So
congrats for them.
Yeah, congratulations to all the Good Omens stands. Um, Ooh, Robert Harris dropping some interesting stuff in the chat. The first season of Silo ends about halfway through the first book, but at a great point. I did not know that. I need to read the book still by Hugh Howey. Probably before season 2, I'll do that. All right, our last two shows here on the list. We have Loki season 2.
Okay.
So even with Secret Invasion, dudding it up for Marvel this year, they do still make the list because
They do.
Loki delivered.
Bless him.
Bless
And
him.
finally,
And finally, Shadow and Bone season 2. Yeah, I have thoughts about this one. We'll talk about it, but Shadow and Bone season 2 is on the list, so, mainly so we can discuss it. Um, so yeah,
okay.
how
Are
you
we good
feeling,
to start
Dan?
ranking? I feel good. I feel like I want to dive into this, and I want to again deliver the authoritative rankings that the world has asked for.
Uh,
And Daniel, I'll start this off by I'm curious, what is your easy number 15 worth showing the list pick? Because I don't know what
um,
it is.
it's Shadow and Bone for me.
Oh, you did not like it. So you're going to disparage the dead here because Shadow and Bone got canceled this year after season two. I
Yes,
didn't
it
watch
did.
it. I watched the first season and I was fully whelmed. And I said it the second. I know that you did not like it. Why did
That's
Shadow and
being
Bone
very nice.
deserve to die?
Okay, so let me ask you before I get into my spiel about Shadow and Bone. Do you have a pick for 15 that you think deserves to be down there more than that one?
From this list, not really. I mean, I didn't see that, and yeah, no, I don't. I don't have
Okay.
anything else on this list that I think is that I feel passionately should be in the fifth slot if you think Shadow and Bone should be there. But I do want to know why.
I
Why don't
absolutely
you like this Russian inspired fantasy program?
well, see, this is the thing. I do like Shadow and Bone. I
Oh,
really enjoyed the first season quite a lot. I am also familiar with I've read the Shadow and Bone books. I've read part of the Six of Crows books. So
hmm
like I'm generally familiar. My issue with Shadow and Bone is that they rushed through the second and third books for the main character Alina so that they could do a Six of Crows spin-off next. So they kind of um basically flushed a lot of really good source material down the toilet. They pandered to Netflix's board or executives or whoever, asking them to
uh-huh.
make plot decisions for the sake of like what they thought the algorithm and people would enjoy, which is like that's a joke I've seen in shows like, oh, the taste, I don't remember what show it was. The taste clusters say that this would be popular with our
The
audience.
taste
And it's
clusters.
like they legit did that with Shadow and Bone season 2. The showrunner admitted this because they asked them to have the Crows crossover with Alina again.
hmm
And basically, I think a lot of that was a mistake. I think they really kind of half-assed a lot of very good material in order to rush through it so that they could do Six of Crows, which is a thing that a lot of people really wanted, that Netflix like kind of half-ordered. Like they had them working on
hmm
Six of
Yeah.
Crows. They took the showrunner away from Shadow and Bone mid-season to work on Six of Crows as a spin-off to come after it. So this to me was a pretty clear-cut example of Netflix really wanting to do the whole expanding cinematic universe thing, and half-assing the thing that they were trying to do in the first place because they were more concerned with the bigger picture than with doing a good job with the story they had in front of them. So I think I am biased here because as someone who has read the books, like I didn't love the Shadow and Bone trilogy, but even as someone who didn't love it, it's hard to look at this and see what they did with like characters like Alina and not be like, man, they really, really dropped the ball on this. Like they went from season 1, I was like pleasantly surprised and impressed with how well they
It
wove
was nice.
everything together. Season 2 was the complete opposite, where the whole time I was like, what the hell are they doing? Um, Shuhan is the Asian inspired country to the south of the Russian inspired one. That got a lot of backlash for being like very stereotypically like Asian cinema in a way that like didn't really jive well for me with the tone of the books. And I've seen a lot of people kind of call that out as leaning on some stereotypes a little bit that they maybe didn't need to, especially when they went through efforts to explore Alina as a multiracial character in the first season.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think there were just a lot of mistakes made with Shadow and Bone. So that's I think it out of everything on the list, I think it very clearly deserves to be at the bottom. And we don't need to disparage the dead too much, but I'm sad we didn't get Six of
Yeah,
Crows. But I
you've
think
done
the
enough.
reason why is pretty clear.
Cool. I like, yeah, I'm fine with putting 15. I also like they're pushing
Okay.
against the narrative because whenever a show is canceled, it has people being like, too soon. How could you do this? But I don't know. People sometimes shows get canceled because they suck. And I didn't
Well,
watch, but it sounds like a lot went wrong. So I'm
yeah.
fine with taking Shadow Up Bone to the back, shooting it, burying it, leaving it on a hill.
Yeah, I mean, I am too. I'm it's it's such a tricky situation, Shadow and Bone, because like the cast was great. The cast was like perfect for this show, had a lot of really good things going for it. The Six of Crows spinoff, I have no doubt would have been excellent, but it's just kind of like the priorities weren't quite there. Like they very
Mhm.
clearly cared more about getting to the point where they could do the Six of Crows spinoff than they did about doing the Shadow and Bone story.
Yeah,
So
it's
that
an example of like a cinematic universe rot. It's kind of what kind of
yeah,
is sinking Marvel the movies. It's a lot of these studios want to have cinematic universe like that and have this thing, and it
yeah.
can hurt you. And maybe they'll learn from this, or maybe more likely they won't. But Shadow and Bone is our 15 pick,
Number
and I'm cool with
15.
that.
Yeah. What do you think deserves to go at number 14, Dan?
I'm not prepared to talk about that yet.
Oh,
How do you feel
okay.
about
What do you want to
jumping
talk about?
to? I talk about I feel like the last and the first slots are always like the easiest to do.
Agree.
Um, and okay, so for the number one slot, I think the obvious candidates are The Last of Us, which everyone loved, and it was I don't know, very prestigious, but
Yeah,
also full of zombies and blood and guts and stuff like that. And I think maybe another candidate could be The Wheel of Time season two,
yeah,
which I think took epic fantasy, like kind of attacked it in a very direct, sincere, straightforward way that I really enjoyed.
totally.
And honestly, I think if it were up to me right now, I think I would put The Wheel of Time in first and The Last of
Really?
Us inside. I think I would. I liked The
Okay,
Last of
make
Us
the
a lot.
case.
I
Make the
really liked The Last
case.
of Us. Of course I did. I do feel like if I had flaws with it, I think it peaked a little early. I think that third episode with
Mm,
Frank and Bill is probably one of the best episodes of the entire year, period. I loved it. I don't think it ever quite hit that high again. And there is precedent. I mean, we have Walking Dead shows on this list for kind of
yeah,
grim, gritty, grounded, realistic zombie shows. I don't feel like the finale hit me the way I expected it to. And
agree.
the Wheel of Time, was a little bit ramshackle at times too. I had my problems with it. I just like people waving their hands and going pew pew magic and stuff coming out. And there's something very, I don't know, like a direct line to my sort of childhood love of wizards and rogues and elves and stuff, even though there are no literal wizards or rogues or elves. Well, maybe there's a rogue, Matt, in The Wheel of Time. I thought it was a very well done, just earnest fantasy show. I thought I loved The Forsaken. I love that they brought in these kind of eternal, ancient, very campy villains to menace our heroes. I thought they did a lot of good work with some of the characters, Egwene in particular. Um, I was impressed with how it held itself together, especially after the first season got so um heavily critiqued. I thought
Yeah.
we all have a comeback story, and I think the Wheel of Time had a good one in the first season. I think The Last of Us is like it's the better show intellectually. I think the Wheel of Time might be more of like a favorite spot in my lizard brain, but I've got to
Okay.
stand up for my lizard brain. So I
Fair.
think that's what I would do. What do you think?
Well, I think if I was objectively ranking these, trying to really focus on the quality of the production, these are both adaptations, so I always keep that in mind how it navigates itself as an adaptation.
Hmm.
And I think in terms of like I don't think there's any real debate that The Last of Us was the better show to me. So I did a ranking like this on
Yes,
winteriscoming.net
you did.
recently, and I did rank The Last of Us higher. Um, I I think it is, I don't necessarily agree that it peaked with like Bill and Frank. I think the fifth episode was phenomenal. The fourth and fifth, the kind of back to back
Hmm.
travel through Kansas City, Missouri. I really liked some of the later episodes, like the Left Behind, the episode where we saw
Me too.
Ellie's backstory. I do agree that the finale didn't hit me quite as hard. And I think the Wheel of Time had an almost opposite trajectory where the first couple of episodes were a little shakier for me. And then once it hit episode five, it was just like boom, running straight through to the end and really good. So what I would say is if I were ranking this by myself, I would put The Last of Us first. But I
Hmm.
am happy to make the concession if you would like The Wheel of Time to be first. I can get behind that because like which did I rewatch more? The Wheel of Time easily. I've seen that season probably 3 or 4 times. The Last of Us, I've maybe rewatched it twice. Um, and so yeah, if you would like Wheel of Time to be first, I'm down to roll with that.
Oh, you're
This is
putting it in
your
my
call,
hands.
Dan. I
I mean,
am.
Nicole would prefer that The Last of Us be first, and we need to listen to our readership. And it is the objectively
It
like better produced show. This is hard. Let's say that
is.
those two are the two for now, and then
We can
keep
come
going and
back to
see if
them.
any other feelings arise.
I
I
agree.
I
Let's
do
do
think
it.
those are probably the two, probably.
Can can I propose some for the 14th slot?
No, you can. I don't know why you would ask something that. Oh, yeah, of course. Go ahead.
So I think in slot 14, it should either be the Walking Dead spin-offs, um, or Doctor Who, because
Oh.
it was only specials. How did you feel about Doctor Who? And I'll tell you how I felt about The Walking Dead.
I liked it. Doctor, I mean, the reason that's on here this year is because it's Doctor Who's on here this year is because it had a bit of a revival. It has this old
Yeah,
showrunner, Russell T Davies, coming back. Uh, and I watched it for the first time in years. I'm kind of like a fair weather Doctor Who fan. I come in when things
yeah.
are buzzy and then leave when they're not. Um, and it did feel like old times. It was as zippy and fun as ever. I mean, then there's also the fact that Doctor Who has always been maybe a little too British twee for me. Um,
Okay.
I enjoyed it, but I guess I'm not going to object to it being lower on the list. It is it is what it is at this point. It's been around for 60 years. There's just a bit of a formula for it. It has the Doctor kind of acting um whimsically charming and off-putting. I did like that for these specials they brought in some like high concept sci-fi stuff for each of the three specials, and I did like the introduction of the new guy, Ncuti Gatwa, for the special on Christmas Day. The other was Walking Dead. Okay, was the Walking Dead stuff good? Should it be below or above Doctor Who?
I think it should be below. The Walking Dead stuff was decent. There's still to me the shadow looming over these Walking Dead spin-offs of that they
Hmm.
really kind of kneecapped their final season and their finale in order to set all of these up. The spin-offs themselves, so I have seen most of Daryl Dixon. I've seen a little bit of Dead City, and I wasn't compelled enough to finish either of them. So we can take that for
Okay,
what it was. I think they were better than I expected because
that's
I
nice.
expected them to be garbage, to be honest, just because of the way the finale kind of
The original show, yeah.
cruise through stuff to set them up. Norman Reedus is always great as Daryl. Um, but I think compared to most of the other television this year, they deserve to be a little lower on the list.
Okay.
Even if they were not bad by any stretch. But there was just a lot of better TV this year.
Other
That's my
candidates for
take.
that lower spot, I
Yeah.
think might
Star
be.
Wars.
God, was it really that bad? The Witcher. Although I know that you're going to want that higher.
I am gonna
Okay. So
absolutely
the Witcher's
debate
not. The
that.
Witcher's not. Star Wars,
What about the Mandalorian? Do
The
you
Mandalorian just kind of mostly went in one ear and out the other. It wasn't terrible.
did you
Like
like it
it's
more or
just
less than Doctor Who? Let me ask you that.
I watched Doctor Who more recently. I have recency bias. It was. I remember the Mandalorian. I didn't love about it was it seemed to be kind of rehashing some greatest hits. I'm sure that isn't that old, where it kind of
Yeah.
brought back Giancarlo Esposito to have a more fiery death than he had the last time. It sort of transferred focus from Pedro Pascal to Katie Sackhoff.
Yep.
It is not the show it was. I feel like I love that first season so much because of like that kind of individual serialized stuff. And it's because of the cinematic universe rush, it's never gone back to that. And I think that's the
Yeah,
wrong choice.
I agree.
So it's it hasn't been a show that I've loved for a while, but and I admire that Doctor Who is trying something different, but even that's like trying something different only because it hasn't been around for a while. Like it's
Yeah.
literally the old team, David Tennant and Shona Rhimes coming back. I'm okay. So I'm thinking that the next stretch, like it can be Doctor. I'm not saying this is the right order. So like Doctor Who, The
Sure.
Mandalorian, The Walking Dead, all in there, and I'm fine having The Walking Dead back down there. That's cool. 14. Okay, cool.
Okay,
I didn't watch
cool.
them. I'll trust you on that.
Yeah.
Doctor Who with The Mandalorian. Are there any other ones that are kind of going to be hanging out toward the bottom there?
I think Ahsoka deserves to be near the bottom personally, but it's gonna be ahead of The Mandalorian for me. I think Ahsoka was the more
Okay.
notable show. I think I'm more likely to rewatch Ahsoka than The Mandalorian season three. I think season three of The Mandalorian has a similar problem to The Walking Dead, in my opinion, where they really messed up their entrance by doing the whole Book of Boba Fett thing with Grogu,
Mhm.
resolving the season two cliffhanger there, so that season three was just it just kind of happened. They really killed a lot of the anticipation for it for me, and
Oh, I
they
forgot about
focused on
that.
the Dave Filoni verse of Star Wars much more than the Mandalorian story they were trying to tell. Very, very similar to kind of what happened with Shadow and Bone, where the priority was the cinematic universe instead of the individual show, which all of these series are doing this. And I feel like the whole reason the MCU, just to rant for a second, the whole reason the
Go ahead.
MCU worked originally was because they did the opposite of that. And they really tried, like, I'm reading the behind the scenes book and they talk about how they
Oh yeah.
really focused on each movie as they were making it instead of the broader picture. And I just wish these studios would take a note or two. But yeah, so The Mandalorian, I think, is definitely near the bottom. Ahsoka is near the bottom, but higher than that.
You know what?
Be
I forgot about that hot nonsense where they made you watch the Book of Boba Fett to
Yeah,
understand Mandalorian season three. You're right. That's a sin. It should go at number 11 next to Boba Fett. Or sorry, after The Walking Dead. 13. It should go at 13. I just saw the numbers now. It
13
should
for The
be Shadow and
Mandalorian.
Bone, Walking Dead, 13 The Mandalorian, and then bump Doctor Who up to 12
I can
at
get
the
behind
least.
that.
Yeah, The Mandalorian, it's fine, but it pulled some bull crap making you watch other series and then not even and then having the gall to not even be that thrilling once you got back to it. Okay, yeah. I'm comfortable with that. Okay. Where should Black Mirror go? Are you gonna boost Black Mirror? I didn't
I
watch it. I heard that it was uh folk like the first episode and then the other ones are like fine.
hits and misses. So here's what I think. So Mandalorian's at 13, Doctor Who's at 12. I think Black Mirror should go at 11.
Okay.
Black Mirror was so here's my whole case for Black Mirror. it was not the strongest season of the show ever. It had some really great classic Black Mirror episodes that are going to be like new favorites of people for years. It also had some weird ones that weren't the best. Fully prepared to admit that.
It happens.
But I think the reason that Black Mirror warrants being among the top shows of this year is really the premiere of Black Mirror season 6, which is Joan is
Okay.
Awful, which was all about AI for actors. Basically, this woman wakes up and realizes that someone has made a Netflix show out of her life using AI for some terms and conditions she signed to use the service.
It's clever. It's clever.
Um, and it hit right around the same time that the actors strike was happening, and that episode was referenced a lot during the strike. So this is one of those rare instances where like the art hit at the exact moment where it was really relevant,
Hmm.
and they're like to what was happening in the real world, and had an actual impact on the negotiations that were happening because AI was a major talking point of those
It
negotiations.
was.
So I think Black Mirror deserves, plus it was just good. Like especially the first, like Nicole says, the first two were really good. Um, the others were weak. I like the third one, but yeah, it was a little meh. And then after that, 4, 5, 6 were, it was kind of a bit of a decline. So, but the first two were excellent. And they're basically standalone episodes. Like normally with a show, I wouldn't judge it that way. Like the first two were good, and then it was downhill. Let's rank it at 11. But
Hmm.
because Black Mirror is an anthology series where each stands alone, those first two can be really good and stand on their own, and the rest being a little subpar doesn't detract from that at all. So
Okay.
yeah,
Cool.
that's my case for Black Mirror.
I
I
can
think
feel
it
that.
deserves to be at 11.
Here's a question I'm getting a little concerned about. How high do you see The Witcher going on this list? Like, how far are you going to push this?
Not very, but it definitely deserved to be ahead of stuff like The Mandalorian. I think it deserves to be ahead of Ahsoka. Ahsoka would be
Okay.
my choice for number 10.
I'm starting to feel bad about putting Doctor Who that low. It really didn't do anything wrong. It's charming and it's fun and it's zippy and it's British and it's aliens and it's David Tennant and it's celebrity cameos and it's Neil Patrick Harris dancing as fast as he can in a to the Spice Girls in a majorette's outfit. Okay, but I'll leave that one there for now.
If you want to switch Doctor Who and Black Mirror, we could. But I think the big thing with Doctor Who is that it was just the specials.
Yeah,
And
Black
this
Mirror just
and
was just
this
6 episodes.
it is just 6. Yeah, but again, they're standalone episodes,
Yeah,
which Doctor Who is too. So that I'm open to discussing that if you want to, because we've each seen one. I think those two
true.
are switchable if you're gonna get holiday guilt.
And I feel bad putting Doctor Who below Ahsoka too. But you're right. It is just 3 specials. That should count too. That should be a
It
factor.
does. It does. Because
Um,
Ahsoka had some really good episodes and some meh
mm,
episodes that I really did not like. But I think Ahsoka. So do we agree Ahsoka for 10? It's not going
uh,
higher than 10.
sure. I mean, frankly, yeah, we can.
If you
And
want to
just
bump it lower, we can bump it
no, it's.
lower.
I just want it
I'm
on the
okay with that.
record that I enjoyed watching Doctor Who more than Ahsoka, but I'm putting Doctor Who a little lower because there wasn't much of it that we're
Yeah.
talking about. But I want it noted that Ahsoka bored me. And also just
Okay.
the overall effect of that show was sort of after watching the entire thing, again, we gotta have a term for this. Like the cinematic universe brain of it
Yeah.
all was just why did I bother watching that when it's just setting up some other link in the chain that I have to follow? It didn't feel complete to me. And I know
Yeah.
it's a TV show. They go on
I
and
agree
on,
with that.
but it's a TV show in a different for a new worse age where it's not a TV show that sets up its next season, which a lot of TV
Yeah.
shows do. I enjoyed Warrior, for instance, which daily got canceled, and that tried its damnedest to set up season 4 and then nothing
Yeah.
doing. Um, it feels different when it's Ahsoka and you go on this long journey where she's in the galaxy we all know, far, far away. And then they try to get to a galaxy even further away than that. and that
Yeah.
takes forever. And they talk about Thrawn, but you don't see Thrawn until like way past the point where I would have introduced them if I were writing this thing. And then they like battle back and forth for a while there, and then they try to stop, but they don't succeed, and the bad guy gets away anyway. And now we're gonna have to follow it up in a movie or in the next season of The Mandalorian, which is another thing we have to watch that's not The
Sure.
Mandalorian, so it's happened to Mandalorian or Skeleton Crew with Jude Law or whatever. It rubs me the wrong way. And if it were up to me, I saw that there was craft. I saw that, you know, uh, who is it? Rosario Dawson looked very orange, and I thought that was cool. Um, because she's orange, right, Ahsoka? I can never keep the colors of the
She is
aliens straight in
orange.
my head. There's also a
Yes.
green lady, but I forget her name.
Yeah, Hera.
There we go, Hera. They look great. The dialogue is kind of that kind of sort of George Lucas aping a bit.
Hmm.
It's like kind of just you say what you mean, and you're not really putting much of a twist on the lines, and which is fine. But I don't know if we're gonna do that. I just want a little more to chew on than the very straightforward, almost non-story that we got. I didn't love Ahsoka. A lot of these Star Wars shows, I'm kind of feeling like are wasting my time a bit, even though there was a lot of good stuff in it. So I'm fine putting it there. I think if it were Dan's list, I think I'd put it lower.
Would you switch? So here, let me ask you this. Would you slide Ahsoka down to 12 and bump up Doctor Who and Black Mirror?
You know what? Yeah, I
Let's
will. But
do
I don't
that.
have to. I don't
Sorry,
have to.
Richard, but can we do that? Because I agree with everything you just said. I came from to Ahsoka from the place of having just watched Rebels, so
Mhm.
I could appreciate kind of all of what they were trying to do with all of the references and stuff. And I still thought they really focused the cinematic universe of it all, but also they had this great setup about Thrawn and going to this galaxy. And then when they got there is when I really started having issues because I felt like they got there and they just had no clue what to do anymore at that point.
Yeah.
And it was kind of really meh. And they really botched bringing Ezra back to me, like just did it in the least interesting way possible.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think Ahsoka at number 12, and if we bump up Doctor Who and Black Mirror, I'm more than fine with that. I
I'll
think
go with that.
Ahsoka's note it deserves to be ahead of The Mandalorian. I think there are some things
Sure.
it did really good. I really liked the standout episode was the one with Hayden Christensen and young Ahsoka,
That's
where
good.
she's kind of on this vision quest where she's seeing past experiences they had. That was really cool. The first few episodes I thought were excellent. Ray Stevenson, it's one of his final performances,
Yeah,
and I'm a
he was
huge
good.
Ray Stevenson stan. He was great. But yeah, the back half of the show really dropped the ball for me. So, all right, we're moving on. We're making
Um,
progress here.
Martha asked if Interview with the Vampire made the cut. I'm pretty sure that was on last year's list, and I'm pretty
It
sure it was quite
was.
high because it
It
was
was.
excellent.
Yep.
Um, yeah,
It'll
I'm
be
not
on
sure if
next
it's there
year's
last time.
list,
Yes, it will.
season 2.
All right.
Mayfair Witches is the Immortal Universe show that came out this year, and neither of us watched it, and our colleague Maddie, who watched it, severely did not like it. So
Yeah, I
it's
think you
not
can
a good
safely count
case
that one
for the
out.
Mayfair Witches.
If we go
Um,
up to number three for a second, I'm looking at the
sure,
remaining things on the list.
it's got to be
I
One
mean,
Piece, right?
honestly, or Loki. I felt Loki was really strong. That I mean, it's you got to get a pretty early one for a Marvel show to like move me emotionally, and that
Yeah,
ending where they
the ending
had
was perfect. It was
where
Chef's
everything sort
kiss.
of came together and Loki walks out and assumes this new role, won't spoil it a lot, was I thought very effective. Like actually, that show was written. Like they sat down and they thought of what they wanted to say, about
Yeah,
how they wanted to say it. I loved the look of it. I love the look of it. Just it's a very tactile, kind of weird, sort of like sideways universe Jetsons kind of look to it, where everything has
yeah.
this like eerie matrixy green tint and the hallways are all curved in strange ways. It's like a
It's the Marvel
child's
Doctor Who.
sci-fi drawings. If if like a precocious teenager stumbled on his parents' mushroom farm, inhaled deep, and then read some Asimov, and then just like poured out their innermost feelings onto a drafting board. That's like what the time variance already looked like. I thought it looked great. And
Okay.
I thought it honestly worked. It dragged a little bit in the early times and it's not long enough. I mean, all these shows
The
are like
ending
6 episodes
made a
now,
big
but
difference.
I
It
thought
really
it
did.
best Marvel thing by a mile in a while, like since
Yeah.
Avengers Endgame and Infinity War, probably.
So I agree with everything you just said. I think
Mhm.
Loki deserves to be pretty high on the list. Looking at our remaining list, and this is not my personal enjoyment, because there are some shows I enjoyed
Mhm.
more than like most of Loki. I loved the finale. I agree with you that it
Oh,
was more thought-provoking, more beautiful. They clearly had, see, this is what I mean about like the cinematic universe versus just focusing on the thing, because they designed the finale of Loki to be like a finale to the two-part series of Loki and to the
yeah.
characters' like 14-year journey, this
Mhm.
version of this Loki. And that made it really impact. Like I teared up at a couple of points
I think I
in
might
the
have
Loki
too.
finale, and like for a Marvel thing to do that to me at this point, because
This point.
there are other Marvel things that have done that to me, but not in a while. Um, I think it's really good. It deserves to be up there. The only other one I would consider arguing for, and
Mhm.
I'm not going to say The Witcher. I'm not, even though I probably, again, I watched that a lot more than I watched Loki, but that's personal bias because I really like The Witcher, like the universe.
Yeah, you're right about it too.
I think One Piece should be in the. If One Piece is not three, it needs to be four,
I
because
agree.
I
It's not
think
three, it needs to be
One
four.
Piece was an exceptional show. It was adapting an anime and it actually pulled it off. It had
Yeah, it's
no
very
right to
impressive.
be anywhere near as good as it was. Um, and it was great and it was a fun time and it really captured the spirit of this thing and the, the starry-eyed optimism. And it had great effects. It had incredible
Great effects.
choreography.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Great
so yeah,
casting.
the casting was completely on point. I was so skeptical about One Piece, and it won me over. But you think Loki should be higher? You're voting for a Marvel show over this.
It was a
Are
good
you?
Marvel
Have you been
show.
body snatched? What's happening
Okay,
here?
I have this weird thing all of a sudden where about One Piece, where I
Okay,
never read the manga, I never watched the anime. I'd
sure.
known of it because it's huge. But you're right. It was just it really was like kind of over the top anime in live action without being horribly cringy, which does not happen very often. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
think it reached the emotional. It's not like as complicated a show as Loki was. It didn't reach
No,
the emotional
they're
high of the
simple,
ending.
simple emotional
Yeah,
arcs,
it
but they're
had like
good.
I thought episodes 3 and 4 were a little kind of clipped and maybe
That's fair.
not written as smoothly as the rest. I
Yeah,
think I'm
that's fair.
although it I was going to say I want to be either at 4 or 1, but now that I'm talking about it, I think 4 is probably a good place for it. It's not a
Let's leave
perfect
it at
show.
four
It's
then.
okay. I liked it a lot though. I was definitely impressed. I couldn't believe they pulled it off either. But I don't want to let my like I'm impressed overtake. Okay. Whoa. Nice. But yeah, 4 is good.
Okay, I can get behind that. I enjoyed One Piece. I may have even enjoyed it an equal amount to Loki, but I think Loki really deserves the cred. It gets the street cred for sticking that ending as well as it did. Was really, really. It was one of the first times that a Thor thing. One of my beefs with Marvel's take on Thor, especially once Taika Waititi kind of took over the reins for the character, is that it doesn't always feel like deific. It like they do a good
Ooh.
job of like the fun side of Thor, but they don't always do a good job of making it feel like it's Norse myth, but in comics. Like they did Ragnarok, and like it didn't really feel like Ragnarok, like Ragnarok is the Norse apocalypse. It didn't really feel like it. Loki was, when he stepped out near the end of that season and started
Mhm.
grabbing the strings, was
It
one of
felt
the
important.
first times I was like, this feels like some god shit. I love it.
Some like
Um,
myth, some like actual myth,
exactly.
which is what
Yeah.
superheroes are all about, is like kind
Yeah.
of repackaging old myths and selling them as like modern spandex clad hard bodies. Like that's what they're all about, and this really captured that.
Yeah.
I'm
So
uh,
let's
part of me
leave it
wants
at
to
three.
agree with Nicole and move it up even further. And Nicole, you'll notice we'll take your thing into it, your opinion into it.
I'm not gonna say Loki was better
Okay,
than The Last
okay,
of Us or Wheel of Time. You and Nicole,
fair enough.
I'm willing to meet you in the shield wall for that one. Um, because I think The Last of Us was incredible as
Yeah,
well. And I
probably
think The
wasn't
Wheel of
close.
Time is a really, really epic show. And I think it captured the fantastical, imaginative, wondrous side of fantasy.
Woo.
And it had a huge task. Like they rewrote that
It
whole
did.
second
It did.
season. So after they lost one of the cast, like the lead cast members because of COVID, presumably because of COVID, or during COVID, we should say. Yeah. So
I am starting to see your point more about The Last of Us in first and The Wheel of Time in second. I think I'm comfortable with that. But
okay.
let's talk about
Let's move on. We got to keep
these
moving.
these middle bits. How big a fan of okay, The Witcher. We both watched that one.
Yeah, we are divided.
Obviously, I don't think we're divided. Just I wasn't as attached to it as you are, definitely. The narrative is that it sucked so hard, it sucked itself out of existence. But I mean, it was very hard following what people were saying about it to divorce actual appraisals of the quality from how emotional people were that Henry
Yeah.
Cavill was not going to be
Oh,
on
sure.
their screens slashing swords, wearing wigs, and building PCs.
Building PCs.
There was a lot of other emotions flying through that debate because the show itself, I did think wasn't bad. I mean, I've read the books. It stuck to them as well as the show ever has, which is
Better than even
somewhat ish.
better than some seasons. I think much better than season two.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I mean, like I'm pretty sure that One Piece is a better adaptation of The Witcher than The Witcher season two was. Uh, but at the same time, it's still The Witcher. It's still this kind of show that wants to be more prestigious than it is. It's the show that kind of aspires to Game of Thrones level grim darkness, complexity, and then has all this not as it seems, this like kind of goofy ass
I'll lower
tags
it
that
ranks just for that song because
the song is emblematic of
it
a
is.
lot of sort of the
I don't
cheese
disagree with you.
that comes out of that show. Like the little self-aware winks. It can be really good. It was very strong in places. I actually really like the desert episode. I know that one got chided a lot, and I admire it for sticking close to the books,
Yeah.
or closer to the books. I don't want to act like it's a perfect adaptation. Um, the same problem still applies. It wants to be prestigious, but it's no one is talented enough to make it as good as it wants to be. But I like it. I wish it would just embrace the fact that it was kind of goofy and just roll with it more.
Well, I don't know. I feel like so that song you mentioned, that is emblematic of the problem of The Witcher, which is that this is a Hollywoodified version of The Witcher. It wants to wink at the audience and stuff. And
Uh,
some of that is, is indicative of the book. Like Sapkowski does have a very self-referential style of writing more than, George R. R. Martin or someone like that
mhm.
does. But I think a lot of the narrative surrounding this season of The Witcher was really because people were upset about Henry Cavill. Like the
Oh
desert
yeah.
episode is a perfect example where people were upset about that, and it's like bros, because it's all bros who were upset. Like
Yeah.
for the most part, it's the gamer bros who were mad. It's not just like the game, which the books aren't like the game. They're a different story. So like people being like, it should have been more Monster of the Week. Like they really underutilized Henry Cavill in the final episodes. One was just about Ciri, and it's like that's the story. Like that's the story of the books.
I
That
mean,
desert episode was one of the most faithful episodes of the entire series, and I thought it did a really good job. They gave Henry Cavill 5 out of his 7 best fight scenes were all in this season.
You would
So
know.
there are a lot of things that I think they added a whole bunch of monsters that were not in the books at this point. So a lot of the complaints people had are things the show actually did answer, but people were so butthurt about Henry Cavill leaving that it, the complaints still stood, more than because they were actually valid complaints. But in terms of goodness of show, I I have not seen For All Mankind. You're saying that was a lot better. There's no doubt in
It's
your mind that
better
was a
than
better
The
show.
Witcher. It's not the best season of For All Mankind. It's very that show is like solid as a rock. Like it's very carefully written. It's all about build up and payoff, which means the early episodes are usually a little slower, but it always pays off in the end. It's got a lot of imagination. It's this sci-fi show where what if we live in a sideways universe where the space race between the Soviet Union and the US never stopped. Performances are
It
good. It's a little melodramatic at times, but it engages with some hard sci-fi stuff in a way that's convincing. It has things on its mind about like the mistreatment of labor. That there's like a whole union subplot that's talking about like all the like grunt employees on Mars are getting upset that they're being treated badly by the alien like corporation that's exploring the galaxy and not the galaxy. Source wasn't popular in it. That was good. Performances are all good. It's rock solid show. And this season paid off some long running character arcs too in a way that I found pretty satisfying. I thought it was better than The Witcher. Yes.
okay. So here's what I'm gonna say because did you think Good Omens season two? How did you feel about that?
I would put that below For All Mankind, in part because this was a very transitional season.
Yeah.
Um, it really like the scale shrunk a lot, and I can kind of let it get away with that because it's not the Ahsoka situation where it's setting you up for God knows what. It's Good Omens season two is setting you up for Good Omens season three, which will be the end of it. So okay, it's fine, and it's cute and twee. It's kind of a little like Doctor Who-ish, frankly, where it's funny British people running around, making just the most befuddled, adorable comments.
Okay.
Uh, I think other folk are into it more than I am because there's a very intense fandom around Good Omens. But it was pleasant. I wouldn't put it in like the top five, I don't think.
Okay.
I
So
might
so
rank it below The Witcher if you feel strongly about The Witcher. I'd be willing to do
I
that.
I think we should do Good Omens 9 and The Witcher 8 then. Because I fell
Okay.
off halfway through Good Omens season 2. I enjoyed it, but like you said, it's a transitional season. I think The
It's a little.
Witcher deserves a lot of credit for nailing some really important scenes this season. And I
Mhm.
think the production of creating those scenes, like the scene with Vilgefortz and
Mhm.
Geralt fighting on the beach,
Yeah, remember that one.
um, I think that in terms of the craft that went into making The Witcher this season, it gets a lot of credit in my book. And like I have hated on that show so much over the
Yes, you
years.
have.
So for me to be making the case for The Witcher, um, I think is really indicative of how much of a turnaround it had. So if you are okay with this, I think we should run with this. Otherwise, we
No,
can switch them. What do you
I am
think?
I am down with that. I'm totally down with that. I think Good Omens is we, we don't have time, frankly, to analyze
Yeah,
the
yeah. It's always
origins
the
of the
middle that's
incredibly
hard.
passionate fandom of Good Omens, which I think has some complicated parts to it. But
Yeah,
the show
yeah.
itself is nice. I wouldn't call it, especially this season, like bracingly wonderful. So yeah,
Yeah,
I'm perfectly and The Witcher made a good college try of it. It really
it
made a
did.
good swing, solid second base hit that everyone
Yeah,
was treating like a foul ball that hit the first lady
exactly.
in the eye.
That's exactly. Wow, that's you might have just stumbled on the exact perfect metaphor for this season of The Witcher. Yeah, uh, definitely, definitely. Second base hit that everyone was treating like a foul ball that hit the first lady in the eye.
Sorry,
Um,
Dr. Biden.
all right, so that leaves us with Gen V, For All Mankind, and Silo. So
Uh,
you have only seen For All Mankind, right? Of these
yeah.
three,
Nicole wants Silo number five. Do you think she's going to number five?
I think Silo. Yeah, I mean, I think Silo probably deserves to be number 5. Um, I really liked Silo. I think it had its quirks. Like its biggest quirk to me was that it had a lot of British actors talking in American accents that sounded kind of ridiculous.
Love
Um,
that.
but the show itself was really great at like mysteries on top of mysteries and like carefully
Cool,
unraveling
cool.
them. Rebecca Ferguson, as the
Yeah.
main character,
Dune.
Juliet, she was like, yeah, Dune. She kind of did like, she had like a tour de force type of like performance. Like, this is like a role she'll be remembered for type of thing. Um, which considering how many she is racking up of roles like that now, that says something.
She's on the
Um,
rise.
she is on the rise. I think Silo deserves to be at number 5.
I'm cool with it.
Um, do you want so between For All Mankind and Gen? So you're okay with this? Silo number 5.
I am okay with Celebrate number 5. Yeah, it sounds good. I'd like to check it out.
Yeah, it was good. I think for people who like shows like Lost,
Sure.
Silo really scratches a very similar sort of itch. It's got a similar sort of aesthetic too. These people are all living in this underground bunker and they're trying to figure out they've been down there so long they don't even remember necessarily the details of why they're down there. So, yeah,
Sure.
it's a great show. Um, so that leaves For All Mankind and Gen V. What are your thoughts here? I could go either way.
We can go either way. We can probably sew this thing up. I didn't see Gen V. You would say
I
For All Mankind. I
Yeah.
mean, I guess For All Mankind gets points for not being a spinoff. But Gen V gets points for being, by all accounts, quite a good spinoff of The Boys.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I guess I'd put For All Mankind ahead of it because I've seen it and I like it, and I haven't seen Gen V, but I'm willing to go either way too. Do you feel strongly one way or the other? Does anyone out
I
there feel strongly one way or the other? Gen
yeah, if
V
you
or For All Mankind, which would go there? Just think
yeah,
for us. Think for us.
anyone who's seen it, let us know. I just want to call out JP says, "Hi guys, no way Loki was better than One Piece." Jay, we debated this for a solid few minutes. It really could go either way. Personally, I do kind of agree with you, but then that Loki finale, man, really hits you in the feels. Um, so For All Mankind, I think should go 6th, personally. I really
You like Gen
liked,
V a lot, huh?
I
Oh,
did
sorry.
like, yeah, well, I'm saying For All Mankind should be
Yeah,
ahead of
sorry.
it.
I can't count.
Um, because I think that is a original, you know, interesting concept that is being executed well. I'm
Mhm.
taking your word on this because I haven't seen it. I think
It is
Gen
executed
V,
well.
okay. I think Gen V was a really good spinoff of The Boys. There are times where it did just feel like a more of the same, more of the boys, more messed up shit happening
Okay.
because that's what the whole brand is. I think they did some really interesting things with it in the college setting that like I give them a lot of credit because I it was much better than I expected it to be. Um, but is it, I wouldn't, I personally, I'm hesitant to even rank it ahead of The Witcher. So like there, that's kind of where it's at, where it's like,
Yeah.
I think it was a really good show, but like looking back on this year, it's not one where I'm going to be like, man, that was the standout show of the year. Like there were just so many great shows. So
I
yeah, I
mean,
think
do you want to switch The Witcher and Gen V? Because I
yes,
didn't watch Gen V. I
let's do it.
I'd be fine with that. By the
All right.
way, the picture of the guy from For All Mankind, also a British actor doing a fully American accent, and we notice, just FYI.
Yes. Yeah. So um all right. So this leaves the last one we have to debate very quickly because I think we're pushing time
Yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We gotta go.
Um 1 and 2. Do we want to leave that as the Wheel of Time and The Last of Us,
No,
or do we you want to swap them?
I've come to my senses. Yeah, I mean,
I mean, I
yeah,
love
come
the Wheel
on,
of
come on.
Time. It is one of those things where it's like at a certain amount of objectivity is needed to be like I personally enjoyed the Wheel of Time more, but The Last of Us I think is kind of undebatably the better show between the two of them.
It is the better show. It's better put together. It's also easy. I mean, in a way, it's not as sprawling as the Wheel of Time, so they had a bit of an easier job. Now, that
That's
doesn't
true.
matter though. They crushed it. It should go first.
They
And
crushed it. All
yeah,
right.
let's put Last Time in first.
All
The
right.
Last of Time, The Last of Us. And that is our list. The Last of Us, number one, followed by The Wheel of Time, and then Loki, Green Man. Number 4, One Piece. They did a good live action anime adaptation. You're crazy. Number 5, Silo. History. Number 6, For All Mankind. What If, but live action. Number 7, The Witcher Season 3. Everyone was wrong. Number 8, Gen V. The Boys spinoff. Going good. Number 9, Good Omens. Ineffable Husbands. Very passionate fan base. Number 10,
Yes.
Black Mirror. AI is coming for everybody. Number 11, Doctor Who. It's back again for the 18th time. Number 12, Ahsoka. Just get on with it. Number 13, The Mandalorian Season 3. Get on with it. Part 2. Number 14, The Walking Dead stuff. Still happening. Number 15, Shadow and Bone. You deserved what you got. I
Oh,
think
harsh.
this is
True, but harsh.
I think this is a good list. I'm pretty happy with this.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like, we debated, we duked it out, and I wouldn't change anything about this list. I feel pretty good about it. I think, there are none of these lists you should feel a little conflicted every time you look at one of these. Like, could I swap the one with the one next to it?
Sure.
That's a good sign that we've got them in the right order. There's nothing egregious. Yeah, I feel good about where we ended up.
Thank you, Nicole. It was a good job, guys. And thanks for
Yeah,
watching.
thanks
Uh,
for hanging out and listening with us all year this year, guys. This is our last show of 2023.
it is. Yeah, we will not be back next week, but we'll be back the first week, the first Wednesday in January, because starting 2024, we're going to start a whole new year of coming to you live every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. Talk about all things sci-fi, fantasy, movies, TV, etc. Here in the Winter is Coming YouTube channel and the Winter is Coming Facebook page. Also available for download in podcast form, wherever podcasts are downloaded. You guys have been so great this year. We've loved doing this show with you. We've loved growing the channel. We got to 10,000 next year, 85 million. It's possible. We'll aim for that starting in 2024. So thank you for watching. Daniel, do you have any parting words before we sign off?
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. It has been such a pleasure, and I can't wait to do it all again with you next year. So have a great holiday as well.
Before we go, I just want to say that Warrior shouldn't have been canceled. Goodbye,
Nice.
2023.
Take care, all.